This is part 3 of Aerys II, the Mad King, the Year of the False Spring. We left off with Aerys II getting crazier and crazier and finally snapping after the defiance of Duskendale. Now he will not permit blades in his presence, save for his Kingsguard, distrusts everyone, and loves to execute people via wildfire. Good times. People are noticing more and more that Aerys II is insane, and they also notice that the heir to the throne, Rhaegar, is everything his father isn't. This forms two factions, those that are for or favored Rhaegar, and those for Aerys II. Aerys II's allies were Varys the eunuch, Rossart his grand pyromancer, 3 lords of the Small Council, the Master of Coin, Master of Ships, and Master of Laws, as well as any of those that Aerys II lavished offices, honors, and lands on. Rhaegar mostly got support from the younger lords and knights, including Jon Cunnington, Sir Moonton of Maidenpool, Sir Lonmouth, Dornishmen who came to the court with Princess Elia, including Lewin Martell, Elia's uncle who was also a sworn brother of the Kingsguard, and, most of all, Sir Arthur Dayne, the Sword of the Morning. And Maester Pycelle writes that both himself and the Hand of the King, Merryweather, tried to keep the tensions between the factions to a minimum. The Year of the False Spring began in 281 AC. The days began to grow longer, the snows melting, and woods turning green after 2 hard years of winter. Many believed the winter was gone, even though the White Ravens hadn't yet flown, and they began to travel to Lord Went's grand tournament in Harrenhal. This tournament in itself was a tad suspicious. The tournament was announced in late 280 AC after Walter Went's younger brother, Sir Oswald Went, a knight of the Kingsguard, visited him. The Lord of Harrenhal was also offering extravagant prizes, much larger than the ones given at the Grand Lannisport tourney of 272 AC that celebrated Aerys II's 10th year on the Iron Throne. While many felt that the Lord of Harrenhal was simply trying to outdo Tywin's Lannisport tournament, others began to suspect that Went's tournament was a ruse and someone else was supplying the gold and prizes from the shadows. If we were to guess who this shadow host would be, most would assume Rhaegar Targaryen. Supplying gold for splendid prizes would draw many great lords and knights of the realm together. And then, with so many lords gathered, Rhaegar could bring together an informal Great Council to discuss the growing madness of King Aerys II, and maybe suggest either a regency or forced abdication. If Rhaegar did plan the Harrenhal tournament to make this move, he was risking quite a lot. Aerys II was already paranoid and distrusted Rhaegar, and though Aerys II was cruel, he was also very giving to men that pleased him. If any man that stood to lose office, honors, or lands Aerys II was disposed of heard of Rhaegar's plans, Rhaegar would be executed by his father. I mean, some of Aerys II's loyal men had already started suggesting that Aerys II should disinherit Prince Rhaegar and name his younger brother, Viserys, the heir to the Iron Throne, which would actually work out great for these lords, since Viserys was only 7, and that would mean a long regency where they would get to rule. We know Aegon III had a long regency, and it was terrible, with lords fighting over themselves for power. Upon hearing of the tournament, some of Aerys II's supporters told him he should forbid it or prohibit all tourneys. Fortunately, Lord Merryweather, the King's Hand, warned Aerys II that outlawing the tournament, something that was very popular with the common folk, would only make Aerys II more unpopular. So instead, Aerys II decided he would attend the tournament, making it the first time he left the safety of the Red Keep since the defiance of Duskendale. Aerys II most likely reasoned that his enemies wouldn't dare to conspire against him while he was at the tourney, but Maester Pycelle records that Aerys II hoped attending the tournament would win him back the love of his people, which of course backfires because poor Aerys II can't catch a break. His attendance drew more lords and knights from every corner of the realm to Harrenhal, even more than the grand prizes did, and at the tourney, it was no longer whispers of how crazy the king had become. Everyone there could see it. His long yellow fingernails, ropes of unwashed matted hair, and tangled beard made it clear that the rumors were true. Aerys II was truly off his rocker. At the tournament, he went through extreme ranges of emotion, hysterical laughter, to long silences, to weeping, to sudden rages. And his emotions really weren't helped by the fact that he was still very suspicious of everyone at the tourney. His son Rhaegar, the tourney host Lord Went, every lord and knight attending, and even those that didn't show up, namely his ex-hand Tywin Lannister. Although Tywin didn't attend, dozens of his bannermen and hundreds of Westerland knights were in attendance. When the tourney's opening celebration began, Aerys II made a huge show of Jaime Lannister taking his vows before the royal pavilion and officially joining the Kingsguard. When Sir Gerald Hightower lifted Jaime up and gave him his white cloak, a thunderous applause ran through the crowd, and Aerys mistakenly thought the cheers were for him. not the new Kingsguard Jaime. Regardless of who the Tyrion was for, after Jaime's induction to the Kingsguard, Aerys II began to have second thoughts on his choice. Aerys II had hoped taking away Tywin's golden heir would humble him a bit, but then he realized that Lord Tywin's son would now be beside him day and night with a sword at his side. He became so afraid of this thought in Jaime, he could hardly eat at the feast that night, and then that very night commanded Jaime to return to King's Landing to guard and protect Queen Rhaella and Prince Viserys. Jaime was probably a bit bummed out for having to leave the tournament, but according to all accounts, Jaime left for the Red Keep just as he was told. For 7 days, knights and noble lords fought with lance and sword, and at night they would feast and celebrate in the Hall of 100 Hearths. Many songs and stories came from these 7 days, but 2 are particularly important. The first was the appearance of a mystery knight. This knight was small and had ill-fitting armor detailed with a white laughing weirwood tree. He was called the Knight of the Laughing Tree and on-horsed 3 men in successful tilts. Aerys II did not appreciate the mystery knight and became convinced the weirwood tree on his armor was laughing at him, and decided it was Jaime Lannister who had defied him and stayed to compete in the tourney. In a fury, Aerys II commanded his own knights to defeat the mystery knight the next day so he could unmask the knight and expose him. But the mystery knight disappeared during the night and was never seen again. If you want to learn more about this mystery knight and the theories behind who it was, you can click right here on the image that's being shown and it will open in a new tab and you can watch that video. I made this a separate video so those that aren't interested in the mystery knight or the theories behind him wouldn't have their video about Aerys II interrupted. The second incident involves Prince Rhaegar. Rhaegar beat every foe he faced, including 4 Kingsguard and in the final tilt on horse Sir Barristan Selmy, who was regarded as the finest lance in all the 7 kingdoms. The crowd went crazy with cheering, but Aerys II only saw Rhaegar's victories as a threat. And then Rhaegar went full stupid and declared Lyanna Stark, daughter of the Lord of Winterfell, the Queen of Love and Beauty, placing a garland of blue roses in her lap with the tip of his lance. Not his own wife that was in attendance, Prince Elia Martell of Dorne. This act further inflamed Aerys II's mistrust, as one of Aerys II's men told Aerys that Rhaegar did this as an act to win allegiance with Winterfell. But there are some doubts on that being Rhaegar's motive. Lyanna's brothers weren't too happy with what Rhaegar did, especially since Lyanna was betrothed to Robert Baratheon, and this could be seen as a slight on her honor. Brandon, the eldest and the heir to Winterfell, had to be restrained against confronting Rhaegar. Robert Baratheon, betrothed to Lyanna, simply laughed off Rhaegar's act, saying he was simply paying Lyanna her due. However, some that know Robert said that he fixated on the insult, and his heart began to harden towards the prince. The tourney ended, and as 281 AC came to an end, so did the false spring, and winter returned. As the cold and snow grew worse, Aerys II commanded his pyromancers to stop the winter with their magic. All along the walls of the Red Keep for a moon's turn you could see the green fires burning. At the same time, it's believed Aerys II's behavior got a little bit worse, and the act of burning people alive got him extremely in the mood for sex. After one such burning, he reportedly raped his wife Rhaella, leaving cuts and bruises all over her body. Meanwhile, Rhaegar had taken to the road with half a dozen of his closest friends, and 10 leagues from Harrenhal, Rhaegar found and took Lyanna Stark. Brandon Stark had been visiting Catelyn Tully, his betrothed, at Riverrun and traveled north to meet his father's wedding party when he heard of Lyanna's abduction. Understandably, he was a little upset that the Crown Prince had abducted his sister. Brandon took the small company of young nobles he was traveling with to King's Landing to challenge Rhaegar. Brandon supposedly shouted while trying to find Rhaegar, "Come out and die." Aerys II at this point is beyond reasoning, and declared that they were conspiring to kill the Crown Prince, and he ends up summoning the fathers of all the noble boys that were there to come answer for the crimes of their sons. But of course this was a trap, and when the nobles arrived, they were immediately executed with their sons. Rickard Stark, Brandon, Ned, Benjen, and Lyanna's father demanded a trial by combat. Aerys II agreed, but named his champion Fire, and had Rossart, his grand pyromancer, light a fire beneath Rickard while he was in his full armor. Brandon Stark had a noose put around his neck and a sword out of his reach as he watched his father burn alive and die. Brandon ends up strangling himself to death, trying to reach for the sword to save his father's life. After Aerys II finishes all this nasty business, he commands Jon Arryn to execute his former wards, Robert Baratheon and Ned Stark. Jon Arryn refuses, raises up his banners, and begins Robert's rebellion. Make sure you come back next Sunday when we do the 4th and final part of Aerys II, talking about Robert's rebellion, or come back this Wednesday when we talk about Rhaegar, Robert, and Lyanna.